In Africa, two aquatic powerhouses exist. One a massive plant-eating mammal, the other a deadly carnivorous reptile. Neighbors whose lives are worlds apart. But in a remote lake in South Africa, both face unforgiving challenges. From a dry season that won't break to battles of supremacy between superpowers and little dragons that seek survival against the odds. These are the struggles that define life for the crocs and hippos of Ndumo. The Kwa-Zulu Natal region of South Africa holds pockets of languid estuarine waterways and vibrant wetlands. Perfect hippo and croc country. These two species have coexisted here for thousands of years, evolving in different ways to a life aquatic. In the northeast corner of Kwa-Zulu Natal, the Ndumo Reserve is one of the few places in South Africa where these iconic animals still roam free. Yet in Ndumo, paradise has turned ugly. A cruel drought grips the land. It's a place that should get 1,000 millimeters of rain a year. But no rain has fallen here for 18 months. The once brimming lake has all but dried up, while the usually lush landscape is left cracked and thirsty. Even fish lie dying in the ever-shrinking shallows. The lake used to be home to several families of hippo. But as the water disappeared, so did they, leaving their longtime neighbors to rule the roost. Nile crocodiles are hardy survivors and can make do with what little water is left. The robust reptiles can go for months without eating, conserving energy by staying inactive between meals. But the drought isn't bad news for all those that live here. Many of Ndumo's water birds are seeing an unexpected upside to the shrunken lake. Less water makes it easier for locals like the white heron to spear fish trapped in small pools. For the long-legged flamingos, their diet of shrimp is also simpler to find in the muddy shallows. Opportunists like this young fish eagle now come across big prizes in the form of dead fish. But this is too good a meal to be uncontested. The usurper is older, as evidenced by his almost white neck and face, and thus more dominant. He's just one of a multitude of birds that call Ndumo home. Indeed, this is a place renowned for its incredible diversity of bird life. More than 430 species live here. For the crocodiles, all this feathered flesh is technically edible. They could easily snap up the unsuspecting waders. But they prefer catfish. Easy for the agile crocs to catch in what little water is left. The rugged reptiles will only leave this area if the water dries up completely. The last time this happened, they were rumored to have walked for almost 90 kilometers to the swamps of Mozambique. A mammoth waddle for the short-legged creatures. Luckily, they don't have to go that far this time. Although the main body of the lake has dried up, there are still a few places left with enough water for the crocs. One such area is a protected inlet at the far end of Ndumo. Here, due to the drought, the water is too salty for the hippos. But the crocs can tolerate it because they have glands that excrete excess salt from their bodies. With most of Ndumo's crocs crowded into the limited space on land, it's now possible to see some truly enormous individuals. The biggest crocs here are around 3.5 meters in length. Some weighing as much as 500 kilograms. They're impressive specimens, but there are legends of much bigger crocs. Sightings of 7-meter-long giants have been reported. But these are unsubstantiated in scientific literature, and it's estimated that fewer than 2% of wild crocs in southern Africa exceed 3 meters in length. Dinosaur-like size is not beyond the realm of possibility, though. because crocs are part of an ancient group called Archosaura, which dates back more than 200 million years. In crocodile society, the males are bigger. But otherwise, the sexes are virtually indistinguishable. The bigger the croc, the more dominant, meaning the largest males get the best sunbathing spots. But it's not for leisure that they lie out in the mornings. Being cold-blooded, the crocs need to use the sun's heat to raise their body temperature after a cool night. While basking, the crocs sometimes open their mouths in extended gapes. The most common explanation for this behavior is that it's done to release heat and aid in thermoregulation. But because crocs have been recorded assuming open-mouthed poses in cold weather too, scientists are still baffled. It is, however, an excellent way to show off one's teeth. It's estimated that a croc of 4 meters in length may have as many as 45 sets of teeth in its lifetime. The teeth of the crocodile are its livelihood, without which they wouldn't survive. They're adapted to puncture the skin of large animals, while powerful jaws snap down with the force of up to 3,700 pounds per square inch, making it almost impossible for prey to escape. Crocs' eyes, nostrils, and ears sit high on their head, protruding inconspicuously from the water when the rest of the animal is submerged. This is called minimal exposure and disguises them while waiting for unsuspecting prey to come and drink. The ambush experts can lie silent and still like this for hours on end when hunting, and they'll eat almost anything they can overpower. For protection, the head is shielded by fused skull plates, while the rest of the skin on the back is covered with thick scales. This coat of armor is complemented by a powerful tail and strong clawed legs. Completing the perfect design for an aquatic apex predator. In Africa, around 300 crocodile attacks are recorded every year, although many more incidents may go unreported. Crocs are one of the few animals that will hunt humans for food. They may also attack to defend their territory or protect their young. Crocodiles are not simply voracious hunters, however. Like all animals, they live through the balancing of seasonal rhythms and their physiological needs. In winter, adults won't eat much and settle into a state of reduced activity called estivation. The approaching cold months will be challenging for Ndumo's newest crocodilian arrivals. These baby crocs hatched only a week ago from a clutch of eggs laid in a hole on the banks of the lake. Their mother did her best to stay close to the nest over the course of the 90-day incubation period. Because nest raiders like the monitor lizard lurk along the lake's shore. But she couldn't be there all the time. Of her 50 eggs, fewer than half survived. Such high levels of egg predation are common for crocodiles. These are the last survivors of her clutch. When they hatched, the mother carried them from the nest to the water's edge, where they now live in what is much like the local crocodile kindergarten. It's a small cove protected by overhanging trees, making it safe from the many predators like eagles and pelicans who have young of their own in the branches above. Shelter from predators is vital for the young crocs because their mother is nowhere to be seen. Once her clutch hatched, she left to hunt after weeks of fasting, leaving the little dragons to fend for themselves until they are old enough to disperse and look for new territories. Luckily, they're already well equipped to kill. At only 30 centimeters long, they're perfect miniature replicas of their parents. Fully developed and lethal. To flies. It's a humble meal for hunters who may one day be big enough to kill huge animals like rhino and young elephant. But before the crocs can assume their position at the apex of the food chain, they must avoid being eaten themselves. On average, only 1% of the clutch will live to maturity. This clutch is no exception. With the rest of their siblings already gone, the last 7 do their best to stay concealed in the sanctuary of their hideout. Inland from the baby croc's cove, the effects of the drought are starkly visible. Areas that were once green and covered in grass lie fallow, now little more than swathes of baked and bare earth. Even hardy thorn trees, normally well suited to life with limited moisture, are brittle and parched. It's a picture of hardship, a once lush ecosystem brought to its knees by the merciless drought. Yet change is in the air at Ndumo. Clouds swirl and dance in the sky for the first time in months. And signs of life trickle back into the lake bed. The first hint of inland rains. At last the storm arrives. Thunder claps, heralding a changing of the season. Drop by drop, clouds start to unload their precious cargo onto the parched land. The long-awaited rain is a gentle, quenching relief after many months of gasping heat. Over the coming weeks, water inundates the landscape. Engulfing even the bases of ancient fig trees. Tributaries that run out of the lake are once more turbulent and full. The waters bring life to many, but for others, they bring chaos. As they surge downstream in a torrent, they dislodge the baby crocs from their sanctuary. Forcing the tiny reptiles out of the security of their sheltered infancy before they're ready. Thrust suddenly into an uncertain future, some survive, others don't. It's the unfortunate truth of nature's law. Only the strongest survive. For all the residents of Ndumo, the renewed flow of water returns their home to its former magnificence. Making it suitable once again for those that left during the drought. The hippos have come home. Habitat degradation has left only 5,000 hippos in all of South Africa. But Ndumo is a safe haven, provided there is annual rain. The hippo's return is welcomed by some of Ndumo's other residents too, like this hitchhiking heron. The hippos quickly resume their routine, which consists mainly of wallowing away the daylight hours. This pod contains 16 hippos, but groups can get as big as 150 individuals when conditions allow. Hippos are known as a contact species because they spend a lot of time on top of one another. It's a pleasure to have someone to rest your head on when you're relaxing in the water. The odd thing about hippos is that they don't actually swim. They walk along the bottom of the lake. This means they favor places where it's just deep enough to keep their bodies underwater, but shallow enough to keep their heads above the surface. There is another reason they like to stay up to their eyeballs in water. They have a thin epidermis, or outer layer of skin, which means they lose water quickly when exposed to the African sun, putting them at risk of dehydration and sunburn. For this reason, shade is a valuable asset. It's a life submerged for a hippo. Not a very stressful existence. But there are some who have aspirations beyond a midday nap. Up until now, the younger bull on the right has been submissive to the pod's dominant male. But today, he fancies his chances against the number one. First, they size each other up, checking who has the bigger mouth. Larger jaws mean a more powerful bite, and hence more chance of winning authority over the pod's females. Battles for hierarchy are potentially fatal. Long canines and stabbing incisors exist solely for fighting. A duel like this can go on for hours. Low-hanging branches get in the way of the fight. A natural barrier that keeps the sharp tusks at bay. and ultimately diffuses the situation. As the sun sets, it signals the end of the first bout. There will be no fighting tonight, as the focus turns to refueling. Hippos feed almost exclusively on short grass, and they only dine at night. They're creatures of habit, and most of the time visit the same feeding grounds. These are sometimes called hippo lawns, because the giant grazers use their wide lips to crop the grass close to the ground, keeping it well trimmed. Hippos consume about 50 kilograms of food in a sitting, which is only 1% of their body weight. Although they are social by day, at night they prefer to eat alone. Because of their immense size, adults have no natural predators and are safe by themselves. After 5 hours of foraging, they return to the water before sunrise. Mornings are a time to snooze and rest from the night on land. Only the youngsters are energized. All the aggression from the older bulls has inspired them to do some wrestling of their own. But their match is just a warm-up for the main event. The wrestling bulls from yesterday are ready for round 2. They make their intentions clear by executing elaborate yawns that show off their long teeth and huge jaws. Neither bull is put off by the other's display. And it quickly gets physical. The bigger bull bears down with his immense bulk. An adult male hippo weighs 3,200 kilograms, more than 5 times heavier than the biggest crocs in the lake. But the younger opponent is no pushover. His desire for control of the harem has pushed him to a point where there is no turning back. He must win the fight or be driven out. It won't be easy. Scars on the flank of the dominant bull are evidence of his past battles. The older male uses experience and timing to his advantage. Rising higher out of the water and pushing down to gain the upper hand. It's enough for the win this time. Victory has solidified the dominant bull's position as leader. He has proved himself superior and vindicated his right to mate with any of the females in the harem. the loser will no longer be tolerated. Now he's relegated to a solitary existence as a lone bull, until he's worked up the courage to challenge again. With the battle won, the big bull turns his attention to a cow in estrus. Hippo mating is a mysterious affair, as most of the time it takes place unseen. Only the male is visible. The female stays under the surface of the water, coming up for air only when she's out of breath. For the big bull, passing on his genes is a hard-won right. He's the master of this stretch of lake, and there is no animal, hippo or otherwise, that can dispute his dominance. Pelicans are some of the biggest birds in Ndumo and flock to the lake following the rains. They're expert fishermen, using their specialized bills and wide gullets to sweep up fish from the water. Today, the flock is after the catfish that thrive on the lake's muddy bottom. But the catfish are too quick and clever to simply be scooped up. Luckily, the pelicans are team players. They make large circular formations to push the fish together. Now they need to corral the catfish into the shallows and cut off their escape route into deeper water. But it's not as easy as it sounds. Catfish are slippery characters. The pelicans just can't seem to keep the fish to the shallows. And time and again, they need to regroup. Like so many fishing trips, patience is required. Finally, perseverance pays off, for some. One lucky pelican hits the mark. Even if the meal takes a bit of extra effort to get down. Unlike the pelicans, the African fish eagle prefers to hunt alone. This adult bird is easily recognizable by its white head and brown body, strikingly similar in appearance to the American bald eagle. Juvenile fish eagles like this one live nomadic lives, leaving the place of their birth once they've learned to fend for themselves. From an early age, they demonstrate extensive fishing prowess and are able to carry off fish as heavy as 3 kilograms. When this bird is fully mature, it will have to find a territory of its own and ultimately a mate who it will stay with for life. While the eagles of Ndumo must settle for fish, the crocs have had an unexpected and rather rich deposit of luck. The flood carried a feast with it. Zebra meat should be an excellent meal for the carnivorous crocs. But the scaly beasts are seemingly fussy eaters. The crocs don't have flesh-cutting teeth like those of predatory cats, so they often wait for the meat to soften so that they can tear off chunks. It's an approach that takes patience, and the crocs have plenty of that. Overnight, the crocs have started to feed, ripping big pieces off the carcass. Now they need to tear them up into bits small enough to swallow. For this, they use a ferocious technique. Rising into the air and giving a quick whipping thrash, the crocs are able to tear the meat up, swallowing the smaller pieces whole. It's an indication of the power behind their big heads and long snouts. There's plenty of meat for second helpings. This will be their last big meal for a while. Crocodiles need heat to digest their food, so they fast through the cooler winter months. If they eat too much now, as autumn approaches, they may not get enough warmth to digest the meat, which could go rancid in their stomachs, poisoning them. they need to consume just enough to keep them sustained through the cold months. Even for these animals of ancient design, portion control matters. For the two African heavyweights, life is dictated by the ebb and flow of water. Both species have evolved vastly different ways to live in their ever-changing worlds. Still, seasonal cycles govern their very existence. The story of the crocs and hippos of Ndumo reminds us that life is never easy. But in times of hardship, perseverance will prevail.